Welcome to Trade of the Week with me and Taoleng Lechela. And up for analysis this week, Lynas Rare Earths, the top 40 index, and in currencies, the British pound against the Japanese yen. Joining us to unpack these counters is Petri Redelinghuys, founder of Herenya Capital. Petri, thanks so much for your time today. This is the last one for the year, so we're going to make it count.
I'm honored. Thank you.
Let's go. Let's start with your first pick, which is Lynas. It's one of Australia's biggest rare earth producers. And we know that rare earths has been at the center of the tit for tat between the US and China. Has that had any impact on the company?
Well, yes, it has. So I pulled up a little weekly chart here, and you can see sort of 2025 started with a real bang. Stock traded from sort of $4 all the way up to 16 it touched, and has come back down to 9. So it's had a massively volatile movement. And this is just as that trade war kind of dragged on, the scarcity around rare earths really went up. So there was all this like expectation, and then eventually, you know, a deal was struck with China and the trade agreement, and that was really sort of centered around rare earths. So share price has come down somewhat since then.
Okay.
However, you know, our view is a bit longer term than that.
I was about to ask if you're buying the dip.
So buying the dip, yes, but not for technical reasons. Now, generally, as viewers would know, you know, we're sort of like, particularly with shorter term trade ideas like we generate here, you'd be more technically inclined. But the ideas that I have today are sort of from a different angle, except for the top 40 index. That's a bit more technical, but the others are slightly more longer term thinking, right? So looking at the chart here, we've got a weekly chart. We can actually say that we do have a support level here. So I'll kind of pop that in, and we can say that looks like as a sort of relatively significant area of support or resistance, right? And we're approaching that space again, and we even look from a momentum perspective that this might be an interesting turning point, at least on a weekly basis.
Okay.
So there is a technical basis to why we want to buy here. However, the reason we want to buy this is because, well, the world is changing, right? Rare earths is something that we use in the manufacture of processes. It's something that we use in the manufacture of green energy applications. It's something batteries and all that kind of stuff, right? So as the world kind of evolves and goes into a greener energy, more energy storage, as well as higher processing capacity and power requirements for AI, particularly around AI, we are sort of the view that it's better to not participate in the gold rush, but rather be the guy selling the shovels.
Okay.
Right? So there are a couple of things. If you want to really play the AI game, what does AI need? Well, it needs inputs to make processes, and it needs energy, right? So we've been on the energy train for a long time, so I'm not going to harp on that, but uranium, if you are interested, is a good idea, we think. But also, Lynas Rare Earths Limited is something that we think has potential upside, because as you say, they're one of the bigger players in the market, and these are they're not called rare earth these sort of commodities.
Just for fun, right?
because they're abundant, right? They really are rare, and they're hard to mine, and much of them come from China, so it's hard for us to get access to that, and this is an opportunity for us to do that. So yes, you have to buy an international share outside of South Africa, but you know, most brokers will be able to facilitate that for you, and we think from a fundamental perspective, you know, over the next sort of 5 to 10 years, companies in this space are going to do relatively well, because it is one of those commodities that we're just going to need more and more of, and there's not a huge amount of it. Ironically, you know, there is a ton of it on the moon, and people are talking about building methods to go and mine that stuff, but until then, there's very little of it on Earth, so the price probably goes up a huge amount, and that creates an opportunity.
And just to pick your brain a bit here on that AI play and not directly buying into AI, what do you think about the memory chip makers, like the likes of an XK Hynix or even a Samsung?
Yeah, I think that that's also a sort of, I know that memory prices recently have gone up quite a bit as well, quite steeply. So I think that this is, you know, profitability across the board for all of these things. I mean, everyone's like, yes, the processors, but you also have to have working memory, right? And some of those GPU cards have not just a processor on it, but also working memory with it, right?
Yeah.
So it is a multi, you know, piece puzzle that you have to put together. So I think any sort of chip manufacturing, whether that be in memory or you know, CPUs, is going to remain robustly profitable for some time. Whether or not these companies are worth what they're trading at is the real question, and why we're being cautious in avoiding them. if you look at the difference, like if you compare what's happening now to what happened in 2000 with the dot-com bubble, right? Everybody got hugely excited about what the internet was going to do and how it was going to revolutionize the world. And any company that had a .com in its name went through the roof, right? Eventually, the bubble burst because the realization came that we'd pushed the share prices way too far compared to the current earnings.
Okay.
Right? So just one more
point, right? Because I have to interrupt you.
Okay, sure. All
right, let's move over. Let's move over to the top 40, bringing it closer to home. Then, why take that position, right? You're shorting the top 40.
All right, let me finish my previous thought and I'll answer your question.
Cool.
So what happened then is that we had all these ideas about what the internet revolution was going to be. But the truth is we weren't even close.
Yeah.
Right? The internet revolution I think is
way
way bigger. AI will be the same. We'll have a situation where we go, well, we've pushed the prices too far, but if we look back in 20 years from now, we're not even close to what we think is going to what the revolution is going to be. It's going to be way bigger, right? So that's why you want to buy the shovels.
Okay.
Anyway, okay, so the top 40. This is a bit more of a technical trade. The two are related, the pound yen and, the yen and equity markets. The yen is kind of blowing out, if you will, and is taking out levels.
So we're moving over to the yen
for a long time. Well, they're related.
They're related,
so
okay,
as the yen, I think, moves up the page, and the yen kind of, it's been very stable for a long time, so it's been very easy for people to borrow money there and invest in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And that economy is starting to feel a little bit of strain, and the currency is starting to blow out a little bit. And as that happens, I think that brings weakness into the broader equity market system. So if you look at the top 40 index, for example, we have this little situation here where we've got quite a bit of resistance. So this, keeping in mind, and I want to put the disclaimer in, is a short-term trade. If the market goes above 106,000, stop out. You know, it's been very likely for the market to continue to make new highs. But from where we stand here, we maybe have a potential pullback all the way to like 95, 96,000. So that would be kind of our, I'll put in another third line here to be our entry point, right? So if we went short here, we'd want to stop out above 106 and we're looking to take profit around 96. So that would be the trade that we're looking to do at the moment, just because seasonally, yes, this is a good time, the Santa rally and all the rest. However, there are some headwinds and, things aren't necessarily playing out quite the way that we expected. Honestly, I would have expected Bitcoin to peak around now, but it seems to have peaked, a few months ago.
Yeah.
So the playbook is a bit different this year, and I think last time I was on the show I also said maybe Santa doesn't come around this year, and so far it seems that might be the case. That said, use a stop loss because I could be wrong.
So a caution on that trade. Talk to me further about the pound yen that you're going long on. Are you not concerned around those BOJ rate hike expectations?
Well, that's kind of exactly what I'm concerned about, right? So that situation seems to be a much higher risk or like it will have a potentially high impact on the market. If the rates in Japan start going up, there's a huge carry trade that starts to unwind. So people have to pay back the yen that they've borrowed. And so what they do is they borrow for really low interest rates there and they invest it in other places as well where they can get higher returns. And you have this carry trade situation. So as rates start to go up there, this has to begin unwinding. So you're going to see lots of money flowing back into Japan, so the yen gets a lot stronger. And equity markets start to come under a little bit of pressure. And if you look here, we have a little relatively long-term chart. It's again a weekly chart. This level seems to be breached. So from a trend following perspective, that's a buy. We're trading into new highs. You don't have a huge amount of resistance above that. I mean, we're looking back all the way to 2014, 2015. So if we're starting to trade into new highs, you kind of want to be long the yen and short the S&P 500 or the top 40s locally. So that's kind of the way that we're positioning. Again, use a stop loss, right? But this is kind of the thinking and a little bit of the motivation behind wanting to be short in the top 40 as well, because it looks as though we have the situation where that carry trade begins to unwind. And if it unwinds, obviously the assets that have been bought with the borrowed money need to be sold to return the money to Japan. And that's where you see pressure on the equity markets.
And that's what I was about to say. It'll be interesting to see the kind of impact then that plays out in the equity markets if the BOJ does increase rates next week. All right, Petri, unfortunately we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your insights with us today. Now that was Petri Redelinghuys, founder of Herenya Capital.